World of Warcraft has come a long way over the last 20 years, growing into a huge, ever-expanding universe filled with new zones, islands, and even entire planets, each one shaped by its own major expansion. With 10 of these expansions behind us and another one on the way, it's easy to get swept up in the latest content and forget the older parts of the world. In this video, we're going back to one of those earlier chapters. We're going to break down the lore and the story behind Warcraft's 4th expansion, the Mists of Pandaria. It's the 30th year in the Warcraft timeline. Deathwing, the corrupted Black Dragon aspect, has finally been slain at the Maelstrom, but while the world celebrated the end of the Destroyer's reign, tensions between the Alliance and the Horde were already boiling over, driven by the increasingly aggressive leadership of the Horde's warchief, Garrosh Hellscream. Under Garrosh's command, the Horde had ravaged large parts of the sacred Ashenvale forest, stripping it for vital resources to keep the people of Durotar from starvation. With the Cataclysm behind them and Deathwing defeated, the Warchief saw his opportunity to shift focus back to his true goal, conquest. His plan was simple: remove the Alliance from Kalimdor and claim the continent for the Horde. And their first target was Theramore Isle, the Alliance's largest stronghold on the mainland. He ordered the creation of a mana bomb, a devastating arcane weapon fueled by Blood Elf magic. After a series of skirmishes across Kalimdor forced the Alliance to retreat back into Theramore, Garrosh gave the order, and the mana bomb was dropped on the Alliance. War erupted across Azeroth, and the seas became the next battleground. For weeks, the Horde and the Alliance clashed in brutal naval warfare along the coastlines and trade routes of Azeroth. During a fierce battle in the southern seas, Alliance forces were shipwrecked on a strange, unexplored island, an island that was unknown to either faction. Seeing its potential value, Garrosh immediately dispatched his newly promoted general, Nazgrim, to claim the island for the Horde. If the resources there could be secured, it might just give the Horde the upper hand in the war to come. But what they didn't realise is what they had just discovered would change Azeroth forever. They had found a hidden, ancient land with a history that stretched far beyond anything they had ever known. Let's turn back the clock to the earliest known era in Azeroth's history, the Primordial era. It was during this time that the Titans, powerful godlike beings, discovered the planet of Azeroth and the dormant, sentient entity at its core, a world soul. We won't go into too much detail here, as it's something we've covered before, but at the time, Azeroth was infested with 4 ancient and malevolent creatures, known as the Old Gods, entities of the Void sent to corrupt the unborn world soul from the shadows of the cosmos. This discovery sparked a massive conflict. A cosmic war unfolded across the planet as the Titans fought to cleanse Azeroth. In the end, 3 of the Old Gods were imprisoned beneath the surface, and the 4th, the strongest of them all, Y'Shaarj, was destroyed. Aman'Thul, the High Father of the Pantheon, reached down from the skies and tore Y'Shaarj from the face of the world. The violent removal ripped the Old God apart, and as a result, it caused a wound in Azeroth itself, causing the World Soul's arcane lifeblood to spill to the surface, and forming what we know today as the Well of Eternity. The Old God's remains, including its massive, still pulsing heart, crashed back down to the southern regions of the ancient supercontinent known as Kalimdor. From its dark essence emerged the 7 Prime Shar, manifestations of pure negative emotion: anger, hatred, fear, doubt, despair, violence, and pride. With the Old Gods defeated and subdued, the Titans left the planet in the care of their creations, the Titanforged. These powerful beings were tasked with bringing order to the world and nurturing its maturing world soul. To aid in this task, they constructed 2 powerful titanic machines, the Forge of Wills in the north and the Forge of Origination. High Keeper Ra, one of the Titan-forged keepers, was assigned to install the Forge of Origination in the south of the continent. But on his journey, he discovered the remnants of Y'Shaarj and its corrupted heart. Realizing the danger it posed, Ra sealed the remains deep beneath the surface in what would become known as the Vault of Y'Shaarj. He left some of his loyal servants, the Mogu, to guard the vault and the surrounding lands. It was a decision made with good intent, but one that would echo through history with devastating consequences. Another Titan Keeper, known as Freya, was entrusted with shaping and nurturing nature across the freshly ordered world. She wandered Azeroth, seeking out locations where the raw energies of the Well of Eternity had gathered. These energy-rich regions created ideal conditions for the emergence of new life. One site in particular plays a crucial role in our story, a lush region in the far south of ancient Kalimdor. The Vale of Eternal Blossoms. While Freya continued shaping the natural world, her fellow keeper Ra carried on his duties in the southern regions of the continent, installing the Forge of Origination. But one day, everything changed. As the keepers went about their work, they were struck by a sudden and overwhelming surge of power, a wave of scattered memories and fading emotions washing over them. Confused and unsettled, they reached out to their Titan leaders for answers, but there was no response. What they had experienced was the last echo of the Pantheon spirits, released when the traitor and corrupted Titan Sargeras seemingly struck down his fellow Titans. Devastated by the loss of his creators, Ra carefully gathered what remained of Amanthal's power and sealed it away in a vault carved deep into the mountains near the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. Afterward, consumed by grief and unable to face what had just happened, Ra withdrew from the world. He descended into the catacombs beneath the land to meditate in solitude, abandoning his role as a protector of Azeroth. From that moment on, his Titan-forged servants, the Mogu, were once again left to carry on their work alone for tens of thousands of years. The southern lands of the ancient continent remained relatively peaceful until around about 15,000 years ago, when everything changed with the arrival of the Curse of Flesh. This affliction, unleashed by the old god Yogg-Saron, was designed to weaken the Titan-forged races by transforming their stone and metal forms into vulnerable beings of flesh and blood. They would become mortal, corruptible, and flawed. The Mogu race were among those affected by the curse. With Ra still missing and no leadership to guide them through this crisis, the Mogu descended into chaos. Former allies turned against one another and splintered into rival warrior clans, each led by ambitious warlords vying for control over the southern regions of the continent. The Mogu was on the edge of self-destruction. The only time they would set aside their rivalries was in the face of a shared threat to their lands, an ancient insectoid race. During the Old Gods' occupation of Azeroth in the Primordial Era, twisted insectoid creatures known as the Archaea emerged from the foul organic matter that oozed from the Old Gods' enormous forms in the planet. When the Titan Forged finally shattered the Black Empire, the Archaea were driven deep underground, where they remained dormant for millennia, until they were later reawakened by a powerful Warbringer. Fueled by a single purpose of eradicating all non-insectoid life from Kalimdor, the Archaea launched a brutal war against the Trolls. Though ultimately defeated, they fractured into three distinct colonies: the Nerubians of Azjol-Nerub in the north, the Karaji of Ahn'Qiraj in the west, and, the most relevant to our story today, the Mantid of Mantivus in the south. The Mantid saw the war-torn Mogu as a threat to their world. They launched relentless raids into Mogu territory, Mogu clans fighting each other in bitter civil wars, only to briefly unite when the Mantid swarms descended. That cycle of violence continued for generations until a single young warlord brought order to the region. This young Mogu, named Lei Shen, quickly rose through the ranks of the military. Once he came of age and earned command over his own legions of Mogu, he declared a bold and dangerous intention. He wanted to awaken the gods. Eventually, he uncovered the entrance to a long-hidden vault that was buried beneath the lands north of the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. Inside, he found something very few believed still existed: the High Keeper Ra. The Titan Watcher, once entrusted with overseeing Azeroth's southern reaches, Ra stood in the vault silently, guarding a powerful Titan device. When Lei Shen approached him with questions, Ra said nothing. He didn't even react to the warlord. Lei Shen soon realized the awful truth. Ra wasn't lost in deep thought or divine calculation, he had simply given up. The Keeper had lost hope. Enraged by this lack of reaction, Lei Shen accused Ra of abandoning his duty and the legacy of the Titans. Breaking his silence at last, Ra brought Lei Shen to the Thundering Mountain, and the truth was revealed to Lei Shen. The Pantheon was seemingly dead, slain by the traitor Sargeras. But where Ra had fallen into despair at this revelation, Lei Shen saw opportunity. if the gods were gone and their servants had abandoned their purpose, then he would take that purpose for himself. Without warning, Lei Shen struck at Ra. He bound Ra in great chains and overpowered him, and stole both his power and the last essence of Aman'Thor's power. He gained dominion over the wind and the storms. Now wielding the power of the heavens, Lei Shen became known as the Thunder King. With his newfound might, he returned to the Mogu and rose to power the Mogu way, by eliminating his rivals one by one. He believed that the so-called lesser races of the southern regions were meant to serve him, just as the Mogu had once served their creators. He crowned himself emperor over all who lived within his expanding empire. He ruled as a tyrant and rewarded loyalty with riches and crushed resistance with chains and slavery, uniting the Mogu under one banner and subjugating every other race that stood in his way. But Lei Shen knew that one of those races would remain a threat to his reign. The Mantid would never bow to a Mogu. So, to separate the two races, he built a wall, a colossal barrier that would become one of the most iconic structures in Azeroth, the Serpent's Spine. Constructed by slaves over generations, it stretched the entire length of his empire. To strengthen his position even further, Lei Shen forged an alliance with the Zandalari Trolls, a neighbouring and powerful tribe of trolls that had conquered much of the land to the north. He offered them a lasting haven near the Vale of Eternal Blossoms in exchange for a binding promise, a promise to restore him to life if death should come for him, and the Zandalari willingly accepted. Lei Shen's reign of tyranny over the lush jungles and the valleys of southern Kalimdor would last nearly 3,000 years. But eventually, Lei Shen's ambition outgrew even his own empire. Blinded by greed and a thirst for ultimate power, he set his sights on the Forge of Origination. Lei Shen believed that by seizing control of the Forge, he could reshape Azeroth itself and unlock the secret to immortality. We explore this in more depth in our story about the lost races of the Tol'Vir, but the short version is this: Lei Shen's plan backfired. The Tol'Vir, the guardians of the Titan machinery in Oldham, activated the Forge, but they had configured it to affect only the surrounding region, and what followed was catastrophic. The Forge of Origination unleashed its full power, obliterating the surrounding lands and annihilating most of Lei Shen's forces. After millennia of tyranny, the Thunder King was dead. His surviving followers recovered his body and entombed him in the Tomb of the Conquerors, where he would lie in silence, until the very day someone dared to awaken him again. After the death of the Thunder King in Oldham, the Mogu Empire fell into decline. Though it no longer held the vast power of territory it once did, it remained strong enough to maintain control over large portions of southern Kalimdor. The Empire still ruled over a massive class of enslaved peoples. Among the oppressed was a native race to the region, the Pandaren. Humanoid pandas known for their deep connection to nature, wisdom, and their love of strong brews. One of them, a Pandaren named Kang, was lost in grief. His only son had been sent to die as fodder in one of the Mogu's endless wars against the Mantid. In that moment of mourning, Kang saw the truth of the Mogu. They were not invincible. Their empire still stood only as a result of slaves like the Pandaren supporting it. To reduce the likelihood of uprisings, the Mogu forbade their servant races from carrying weapons, but Kang had a radical idea. They could become the weapons themselves. And so, the first Pandaren monks were born. Kang became known as the Fist of the First Dawn, and in secret, he trained a growing force in martial arts, turning the Pandaren slaves into skilled fighters. As word of this movement reached the Mogu, Kang and his followers fled to the Kun-Lai summit in the north, where they constructed a hidden monastery in the mountains. It was there that Kang discovered something extraordinary: an august celestial, a powerful wild god who watched over the land of Pandaria. Kang had found Xuen, the white tiger. Kang often meditated near the places where Xuen could be found, seeking wisdom from the celestial. Armed with new knowledge, new martial arts skills, unity, and purpose, the Pandaren Revolution would begin. Victory after victory followed, and their courage inspired the other slave races to stand up. The Mogu, that were once thought to be unstoppable, began to fall back. In the end, Kang and his Pandaren emerged victorious, but it was at the cost of his own life. With Kang's sacrifice, the enslaved peoples of southern Kalimdor had finally won their freedom, and across the land, a new name began to take hold for the region: Pandaria. Roughly 2,000 years after the revolution, a new Pandaren emperor ascended to the throne. His name was Shaohao. Shortly after his coronation, he sought the wisdom of the Water Speaker, a revered elder of the Jinyu. The Jinyu traced their origins back to Murlocs who dwelled near the enchanted waters of the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. Over time, the potent magic of the pools transformed them, expanding their minds, shaping their forms, and elevating them into one of Pandaria's great ancient civilizations. But instead of hopeful visions, the Water Speaker delivered a grim prophecy. A powerful kingdom of elven sorcerers to the north was summoning a legion of demons from the Great Well of Power. Green fire would rain from the skies, and the very continents of the world would shatter into pieces. Troubled and uncertain, Shaohao turned to one of the august Celestials, the Jade Serpent, for guidance. The Celestial advised him to purify his spirit, to cast off the burdens of anger, fear and doubt, and to become one with the land he ruled, to understand it. At first, Shaohao didn't fully understand what this meant, but over time, and through a series of spiritual trials, he came to realize the truth. He had to confront and purge his own negative emotions. One by one, he did so, shedding his emotions of anger, hatred, violence, doubt, and fear. Each time he let go a piece of darkness within him, it manifested physically in the world as one of the malevolent entities known as the Shah, echoes of the old gods, lingering corruption. Rather than destroy them outright though, Shaohao and the Celestials chose to imprison these manifestations deep underground, beneath sacred temples dedicated to the august Celestials who had aided him on his journey. With his spirit cleansed and his visions clear, Shaohao would see visions of the arriving Burning Legion and the cataclysm that would follow, the War of the Ancients and the Great Sundering. He realized that the only way to protect Pandaria was to remove it from the chaos entirely. And so, in his final act as Emperor, Shaohao became one with the land. As his physical form faded, he called upon the power of his ancient staff, Shaylun, and broke Pandaria away from the rest of Kalimdor. Following this event, a shroud of thick, impenetrable mists enveloped the land, hiding it from the world beyond. At first glance, shrouding the island in mist might seem like a wise choice, but the truth was far more complex. When Shaohao purified his spirit, he clung to a single lingering flaw: pride. As a Pandaren, he believed that they were above the rest of the world and capable of facing their challenges alone. Yet for the next 10,000 years, their buried doubts and fears seeped into the land itself, festering and rising to the surface whenever they were given the chance. When the main continent of ancient Kalimdor was torn apart in the Sundering, Pandaria drifted silently into the ocean, lost in the mists and untouched by the horrors that ravaged the rest of Azeroth. For the next 9,200 years, the people of Pandaria lived in quiet isolation, continuing their way of life undisturbed by the outside world. But around about 800 years ago, that peace was gently stirred by the curiosity of one Pandaren, a scholar and explorer named Liu Lang. Driven by a deep sense of wanderlust, Liu Lang dreamed of seeing what lay beyond the mists. He found inspiration in the native sea turtles, known to leave but to always return to the shores where they were born. Following this instinct, he travelled to Turtle Beach, along the southern coast of the Krasarang wilds, where he befriended a young sea turtle he named Shenzin Su. Together, Liu Lang and Shenzin Su ventured beyond the mists, disappearing into the unknown. At the time, most believed that only Pandaria had survived the Great Sundering. To suggest otherwise was seen as foolish, but 5 years later, he returned. Riding atop Shenzin Su, now grown larger from the journey, Liu Lang brought tales of distant lands and strange people like the trolls on the Tauren. But still, many dismissed his stories as fantasy. Undeterred, Liu Lang spent the rest of his life travelling the world, returning to Pandaria every 5 years. Each time, Shenzin Su had grown larger. Liu Lang lived to the age of 122, and though he was never fully embraced by the masses, he inspired a small but loyal following, those who believed in the world beyond the mist. After Liu Lang's passing, Shenzin Su continued to grow, eventually reaching an immense size. so big that entire forests, villages and even mountain ranges formed on its back. The Pandaren who decided to settle on Shenzhen-su decided to call their new home the Wandering Isle. Before we bring our story back to the present time, now is a perfect moment to take a closer look at the different zones of Pandaria, to explore each region before diving into the events that unfold when we finally arrive there. A helpful way to understand these zones is through the lens of the August Celestials. The August Celestials are of course 4 powerful wild gods who dwell in and watch over Pandaria. Like the other wild gods of Azeroth, Chi-Ji, Niaozhou, Xuan and Yulon all emerged from the life-giving enclaves shaped by Freya during the planet's ordering. Over time, the Pandaren formed a strong bond with these wild gods, resonating with their peaceful nature and philosophical teachings, weaving their values into both spiritual practice and everyday life. After the Pandaren Revolution, temples were established across the land, each one dedicated to a celestial and designed to train monks in their unique styles and teachings. But more on them later. Right now, let's dive into Pandaria itself and explore each zone in detail to understand why they matter. Our first stop on the Pandaria tour, the Jade Forest. The Jade Forest is a vibrant green landscape stretching along Pandaria's eastern coast. Towering stone peaks rise above thick forests, and the land is full of life, with a wide variety of plants growing across the coastal cliffs, valleys and hills. It's the native homeland of the Pandaren, and their peaceful villages, temples and farmlands are scattered throughout the region. There are still signs of ancient history here too. Ruins left behind by the long-gone Mogu Empire can be found in places like the Terrace of Ten Thunders. Pandaren settlements like the Pordon village and Dawn's Blossom are lively centres of daily life, but the most important landmark in the forest is the Temple of the Jade Serpent. It's a place of worship and learning where monks and pilgrims come to reflect, study and find inner peace. But it's also where Emperor Shaohao confronted the Shah of Doubt during his quest to save Pandaria, and that Shah of Doubt still lingers there, sealed beneath the temple. Just west of the Jade Forest and right at the heart of Pandaria lies the Valley of the Four Winds. This region is a wide, peaceful stretch of farmland that is known as the breadbasket of Pandaria. The valley plays a vital role in feeding the entire continent. Golden fields and green terraces stretch as far as the eye can see, where clever irrigation systems and age-old farming techniques keep the land fertile. The valley is also the proud home of the famous Storm Stout Brewery, a beloved institution in Pandaren culture. Known for its joyful atmosphere and endless flow of finely crafted ales, the brewery is a source of pride and celebration. The Storm Stout family has long maintained its legacy, carefully guarding the recipes that make their brews so special. Overlooking this fertile region is Chi-Ji, the Red Crane. Though the presence of this celestial is more directly tied to the Krasarang wilds in the south, Chi-Ji also watches over the valley. Often seen as more of a continuation to the Valley of the Four Winds than a separate zone, the Krasarang wilds is a place full of contrast and mystery. It's a shadowy, humid land where whispers of the ancient Mogu Empire still seem to echo through its winding rivers and overgrown ruins. The gentle rolling hills of the valley quickly give way to dense jungle as you move deeper inland. Towering trees, tangled vines and moss-covered stones dominate the landscape. At the heart of the area lies the Temple of the Red Crane, a sacred monument dedicated to Chi-Ji. The temple isn't just a place of worship though, it also serves as the resting place of the Shah of Despair, sealed away beneath its foundations. But on a lighter note, the southern shores holds Turtle Beach, the very place where the famous explorer Lu Lang first set off into the unknown on the back of his sea turtle, Shenzhen-su. In the north of Pandaria, we find the Kun-Lai summit, one of the most prominent and significant regions on the continent. It's a vast and varied land featuring towering mountain peaks, golden autumn plains, and a rugged, windswept coastline. High in the icy northern mountains sits the Temple of the White Tiger, the ancient stronghold guarded by the elite martial priests and watched over by Xuan, the White Tiger. The temple serves as both a training ground and a place of spiritual reflection, devoted to strength, discipline, and balance. Deeper in the mountains is the secluded base of the Shado-Pan, a secretive and highly disciplined order charged with protecting Pandaria from the dark forces that lurk beneath its surface, especially the ever-present threat of the Shah. The Kun-Lai summit has deep roots in Pandaria's ancient history. The land itself was shaped by the Mogu under the guidance of the Titans, long before they were affected by the Curse of Flesh. Over the centuries, the summit became a contested region fought over by rival Mogu clans, but in time, the land had been settled on by many of Pandaria's native races, including the Mountain Hosen, the Jinyu, and early Pandaren farmers. Xuen, the White Tiger, took on the role of protector of these people, vowing to defend the summit from outside threats. The region is also home to the Mogushan Vaults, a vast ancient Titan facility that was once claimed by the Mogu during the reign of the Thunder King. Today, Grummels, Hosen, Jinyu and Yonggol all call this place home, doing their best to coexist in the harsh but beautiful terrain. But not all is at peace in this region. Deep beneath the surface, it is said that the shower of anger and the shower of hatred still lie dormant, waiting for the right moment to rise up again. To the west of the Kun-Lai summit, nestled in the foothills of its towering mountain ranges, lies the Townlong Steppes, a rugged, wind-swept region that sits on the far side of the Serpent Spine, the great wall that once separated the heart of Pandaria from the dangers beyond. The steppes are made up of rolling grasslands dotted with red leaf trees that give the land a distinct autumn vibe. To the northeast, the terrain becomes rockier and more sparse, dominated by jagged cliffs and crags, territory mostly claimed by the Yonggol that remained here during the Great Migration. The southwestern and the western islands are controlled by the Mantid, who have brought with them their unmistakable architecture, the organic pod-like structures clustered around towering, twisted trees. At the heart of the region lies the Temple of Niaozhou, of course dedicated to Niaozhou the Black Ox, the final of our 4 August Celestials on this list. It stands as a symbol of strength and endurance, surrounded by the same grassy hills that define the greater steppes. But the temple is not free from corruption. The Mantid have slowly breached into the area, and far beneath the temple, the shower of fear stirs within the ancient catacombs. Separated from the rest of Pandaria by the towering Serpent Spine is the Dread Wastes. They lie south to the Townlong Steppes and east of the Valley of the Four Winds. This dark and decaying land is the heart of Mantid territory. While its terrain is similar to the steppes to the north, rolling landscapes, great trees and insectoid structures, the Dread Wastes have been twisted by sinister forces. A heavy gloom hangs over the region, and Shah corruption seeps into the land itself, warping the soil and twisted the once vibrant environment into something ominous and hostile. That corruption has not been contained. Shah-tainted energies have spilled through the cracks in the Serpent Spine, infecting parts of the Valley of the Four Winds and paving a path of destruction toward the Gate of the Setting Sun. From there, the Mantid swarm in waves, driven by madness and a hunger to consume everything in their path. At the center of this corrupted land stands the Mantid's imperial stronghold, the Heart of Fear. This grand palace has become a monument to the Shah of Fear, which completely overtook the Mantid through their empress, Shek-Zir, driving their entire race into a violent frenzy. But not all Mantid have surrendered to this madness. In the heart of the Wastes, a faction known as the Klaxxi, ancient guardians of Mantid tradition, have risen in rebellion. They seek to preserve their culture and resist the corruption that has consumed their empress and their people. And finally, we come to the Vale of Eternal Blossoms, nestled in the very heart of Pandaria. This golden valley is not only geographically central, it's also one of the most spiritually and culturally important regions on the continent. For both the Pandaren and the Mogu, the Vale has long been considered sacred. Once referred to as the Cradle of Life, the Vale is covered in radiant gold blossoms and tranquil trees. It served as the seat of power for Pandaria's many rulers, most notably the Mogu. At the heart of the Vale are 6 sacred pools, said to be the lifeblood of the land itself. Each one of the pools stand in contrast to the Shah, reflecting the values needed to counter their corruption. The Vale of Eternal Blossoms is a place of great beauty, but also of deep ancient power, and as we'll see, it plays a critical role in the story that's about to unfold. Returning to where our story began, the Alliance and the Horde only discovered the lost land of Pandaria after the return of Deathwing shattered the world. The chaos of the cataclysm caused the ancient mists surrounding the continent to lift, exposing Pandaria to the outside world for the first time in over 10,000 years. But with that revelation came unintended consequences. As both factions arrived on Pandaria, an ancient evil began to stir. The Alliance and the Horde made landfall on the shores of the Jade Forest. Almost immediately, the presence of both factions sparked conflict. Clashes broke out along the coast, and in the aftermath of one such battle, both sides witnessed something alarming. A strange, shadowy force, later revealed to be the Shah, erupted from the earth, latching onto wounded soldiers and twisting their emotions. Taranzu, a prominent Pandaren monk and leader of the Shado-Pan, intervened, saving key figures on both sides and issuing them a dire warning. The Shah feed on negative emotions, hatred, fear and anger, and the war between the Alliance and the Horde threatened to unleash catastrophic consequences upon the land. That warning unfortunately went largely unheeded though. Both factions began securing territory in the Jade Forest. Throughout the forest, skirmishes continued, but not all efforts were focused on war. Representatives from both factions crossed paths with Lorewalker Cho, a storyteller and historian who sought to teach the newcomers about Pandaria's ancient past. Through him, they learned of the long-lost emperors, sacred temples, and the hidden dangers buried beneath the land. As preparations for a final confrontation intensified, Lorewalker Cho told them of the troubling truth. The last Pandaren Emperor, Shaohao, had once purged himself of his negative emotions, imprisoning them beneath the sacred temples, including the one they stood upon. Cho warned that the temple was the resting place of the Shah of Doubt, but the warning came too late. A battle erupted between the Horde and the Alliance at the temple steps, and the resulting surge of violence shattered the serenity of the Jade Forest, and the Shah of Doubt was awakened. What began as an expedition into the unknown was already unravelling the balance of Pandaria. The Shah of Doubt spread its corruption throughout the temple of the Jade Serpent, twisting Yulon's priests and guardians into dark reflections of themselves. But just as Yulon had foreseen, a group of adventurers, still early in their journey through Pandaria, rose to the challenge and defeated the Shah. After leaving the Jade Forest, adventurers arrive in the Valley of the Four Winds. There, they meet Chen Stormstout and his niece, Lili, who are journeying through the valley in search of family roots and new inspiration for Chen's brewing. Their travels take them across the valley's farmlands, where Chen decides to create a legendary brew using local ingredients. This quest eventually brings them to Stormstout Brewery, which has fallen into chaos. Vermin have broken in and destroyed grain stores, Hosen have turned the brewery into a wild party, and the brew itself has begun to spoil in strange, unnatural ways. With the help from adventurers again, the brewery is reclaimed, and Chen is reunited with his long-lost uncle. Meanwhile, trouble brews elsewhere. Word comes from the south that the Mantid are beginning to push into Pandaren lands, and at the same time, Shah corruption spreads through nearby villages, and the ancient threat like the Mogu begin to stir. In the Krasarang wilds, adventurers uncover a land gripped by spreading Shah corruption and rising tensions. At Zoo's watch, they find the locals trapped in a strange despair, which is soon revealed to be caused by the Shah's influence. Both the Alliance and the Horde establish camps deeper into the jungle and face resistance from several fronts. The Sorok, feral lizard-like raiders, are stirring trouble, and Mogu forces are advancing from ancient ruins in the region, threatening both factions. Eventually, adventurers reach the Temple of the Red Crane, where the august celestial Chi-Ji has fallen to the Shah of Despair. With the aid of Anduin Rin and Koro Mistwalker, the Shah is defeated, and Chi-Ji is freed. After the growing unrest in the southern lands, adventurers journey north to the towering peaks of the Kun-Lai summit. The Yongol, displaced by Mantid incursions, have launched a brutal invasion into Pandaren territory. Both the Alliance and the Horde arrive at Banan village just in time to fend off an attack and rescue their wounded commanders. In a bid to gain local support, both factions offer aid to nearby Pandaren strongholds. West Wind Rest for the Alliance and East Wind Rest for the Horde. But the Yongol are only one piece of the larger threat here. To the west, the Shado-Pan, Pandaria's elite warrior monks, are under siege. Their leader, Taranzu, along with the entire Shado-Pan monastery, has fallen victim to the Shah of Hatred. While the adventurers manage to purge the Shah of violence and hatred from the temple, the Shah of Anger emerges into the open wilds and must be brought down in a climactic confrontation. As heroes continue to support the Shado-Pan, word starts to spread of Zandalari trolls raiding ancient Mogu ruins in the far north, searching for relics to revive the fallen Thunder King Lei Shen. Atop the mountain at the Temple of the White Tiger, the august celestial Xuan stands watch over the gate of the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. Initially wary of the outsiders, Xuan is eventually convinced by both factions that the growing threat of the Shah must be confronted and not contained. With Xuan's blessings, the four Celestials unite to open the Vale. As the conflict in Pandaria escalated, war spilled into the shadowed plains of the Townlong steppes. Still recovering from the Shah's corruption in Kun-Lai, the Shado-Pan led the charge westward to hunt down the Shah of Hatred. They were immediately met with fierce resistance from the native Yongol, who launched a massive assault on the newly established Longying outpost. With aid from Alliance and Horde adventurers, the Shado-Pan managed to hold the line and secure their position beyond the wall. But the worst was yet to come. The Mantid, maddened by the Shah's influence, surged in overwhelming numbers. But despite this, the Shado-Pan continued the chase. Reinforcements would join the effort, and together with the adventurers, the Shado-Pan launched a final strike, destroying the Shah of Hatred and ending its rampage. Meanwhile, the Mantid launched a full-scale siege on Neo Zhao Temple. Adventurers helped repel the invasion, defending one of Pandaria's holiest sites. The final leg of the Pandaria campaign led adventurers into the corrupted depths of the Dread Waste, where the Mogu Empire had fallen under the sway of the Shah of Fear. After being summoned to the Serpent's spine, heroes discovered that not all of the Mantid were loyal to their empress. A splinter faction known as the Klaxxi had risen to resist the corruption of Shek'Zir, who had hastened the Swarm's invasion under Shah's influence. Adventurers forged an uneasy alliance with the Klaxxi at Klaxxivus, assisting them in awakening the ancient paragons, powerful champions from Mantid history, which were needed to rally against Shek'Zir. With each paragon revived, the resistance gained strength. Meanwhile, the Mantid continued to launch a massive assault on the Serpent's spine, attempting to break into the Vale. Adventurers helped fend off the siege, buying time to confront the real threat. At the heart of the Dread Wastes, the heroes confronted Grand Empress Shek'Zir, now fully corrupted by the Shah. In a final push, she was brought down, ending her reign, but the Shah of Fear escaped, slipping deeper into the land. After proving themselves to the August Celestials, adventurers were granted access to the sacred Vale of Eternal Blossoms, a land long sealed off and protected. But the moment the spells lift, the Mogu, seeking to reclaim their lost dominion, launched a campaign to retake Pandaria. Multiple clans established a foothold in the heart of the Vale, occupying the ancient Mogushan Palace. Their leader, the newly self-proclaimed king, King Sheen, was stopped by adventurers in a direct assault on the palace. The final confrontation came at the Terrace of Endless Spring, where the Shah of Fear was finally cornered. In a decisive battle, the adventurers defeated the Shah, ending its reign of terror and restoring balance to one of Pandaria's most sacred places, or at least for a small period of time. As the war between the Alliance and the Horde escalated, both factions established full military footholds on the southern shores of Pandaria. Garrosh Hellscream, obsessed with gaining an edge, dispatched goblin dig teams across Pandaria in search of ancient powers. Their mission led them to the Divine Bell, a powerful Mogu artifact capable of amplifying negative emotions into devastating strength. Garrosh intended to use it to forge an unstoppable army to fight the Alliance. Unbeknownst to him, Prince Anduin Rin and the SI-7 agents followed his every move. They recovered the Harmonic Mallet, a lost artifact that was capable of countering the Divine Bell. In a final confrontation at the peaks of the Kun-Lai summit, Anduin used the mallet to strike the bell in harmony. But Garrosh, enraged, shattered the bell, crushing Anduin beneath its remains and nearly killing him. Elsewhere in Pandaria, covert operations continued. The Alliance defended against a Horde assault near the Temple of the Red Crane, while the Horde dealt with internal unrest as Garrosh sent Vol'jin and Kor'kron forces to investigate the Sorok threat. During this mission, Garrosh's men attempted to assassinate Vol'jin, forcing the Darkspear leader into hiding. In the wake of the escalating war on Pandaria, an ancient and dire threat emerged once again. The Zandalari trolls, seeking to restore their former glory, performed a powerful ancient ritual they had once agreed to, the resurrection of Lei Shen, the long-dead Thunder King and tyrant of the Mogu Empire. Once revived, Lei Shen quickly re-established control over his ancient seat of power and prepared to unleash his wrath upon the world once more. The Kirin Tor offensive and the Sunreaver onslaught, both representing the Horde and the Alliance respectively, joined forces with the Shado-Pan to launch an assault on the newly revealed Isle of Thunder, Lei Shen's heavily fortified island stronghold. As each stage of the assault unfolded, adventurers pushed deeper into the island and into the heart of the Thunder King's domain. Inside the Throne of Thunder, adventurers battled their way through the Mogu war machine, ultimately confronting Lei Shen himself. After a brutal long fight, the Thunder King was defeated once more, and High Keeper Ra, the ancient keeper, was freed from captivity. This campaign wasn't just a battle against a returned tyrant, it was a race to stop a new empire from rising. With Lei Shen's defeat, the balance of power in Pandaria shifted again. Following his violent campaign across Pandaria, Garrosh Hellscream turned his sights inward, tightening his grip over the Horde. Vol'jin, leader of the Darkspear trolls and one of Garrosh's fiercest critics, of course escaped the assassination attempt on his life and fled to the Barrens, where he began rallying a rebellion. With the help of the champions and the unexpected support of the Alliance, Vol'jin's Darkspear rebellion began liberating key Horde territories, including Senjin village and Razor Hill, breaking Garrosh's hold piece by piece. Back on Pandaria, Garrosh's ambitions took a darker turn. He ordered goblin teams to excavate the sacred Vale of Eternal Blossoms, disrupting its harmony in search of an ancient, mysterious power known as the Dark Heart of Pandaria. Garrosh Hellscream's descent into madness reached its breaking point when he unearthed the heart of Yasharaj, the remnant of the old god, and used the sacred pools of power in the Vale of Eternal Blossoms to awaken it. This horrific act corrupted and devastated half of the Vale, unleashing the final, undefeated shower of pride and confirming Garrosh as a threat to the entire world.
All who challenge me will burn in the fires of my hatred.
With the heart of Yasharaj now pulsing beneath Orgrimmar, Garrosh began transforming the city into a fortress of shadow and iron, preparing for war against all who opposed him. In response, the Darkspear rebellion, backed by Thrall, Vol'jin and the Alliance, launched a full-scale siege on Orgrimmar. Heroes from both factions stormed the city, fighting through hordes of corrupted soldiers, war machines and the fanatical remnants of Garrosh's loyalists. During the siege, the champions of Azeroth were also forced to confront the final Prime Shah before reaching Garrosh Hellscream, the Shah that Garrosh had released earlier, the Shah of Pride, and after months of preparation, the champions of Azeroth had slain the Shah of Pride, the final of Pandaria's Prime Shah. Deep beneath the capital, in the Warchief's sanctum, Garrosh tapped into the heart's power, becoming a monstrous echo of Yasharaj itself. Despite his overwhelming might, Garrosh was finally defeated and captured. At the urging of King Varian Rin, he was brought to Pandaria to stand trial before the August Celestials. Vol'jin was named new Warchief of the Horde, marking an end to the Darkspear Rebellion and a fragile peace between the Horde and the Alliance.
Very well. The Horde has committed heinous crimes, Vol'jin. But some among you fought against Garrosh's tyranny. For that, I am willing to end this bloodshed. But know this. If your Horde fails to uphold honor as Garrosh did, we will end you.
The tale of Pandaria was never one of conquest, it was one of self-discovery. And though the world moves ever forward, the lessons of the Mists still remain, especially for those wise enough to listen.